All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you had a chance to get outside or take a quick break. We are so excited to be spending some time this afternoon with George from Folio Furniture. Just to really quickly just sort of frame some of this conversation that George and I, or George in particular, we're going to have this afternoon is really thinking about vendors as our valuable partners and achieving our goals around our mission, our vision, and our values, that we couldn't do the work that we need to do without the folks that are in our vendor spaces to be able to support our team. I will say that over my years, when I have been talking to a lot of our third-party vendors or other groups that we are partnering with, a lot of them actually started in housing and residence life and then found a path into these other projects and connection points with housing and residence life, so they understand the world, may not understand your particular institution, but may understand sort of broadly what you're trying to achieve. And the other piece that I will say, and we'll get into this as we get in through the time together, is that I've really found some valuable and life affirming relationships with many of the people that I have worked with, and the amount that I have learned on different types of projects or different offerings that they have, or even just in the conversations that I've had with all of them throughout the years, been really enriched by the time I have spent with them personally and professionally. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to George and we'll get started.
Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate it. And thank you guys for having us. I think Stefan kind of mentioned this on Tuesday, but it is an honor for Folio to be a partner with a cool eye in hosting the Mid-Level Leadership Institute. It's something we take a lot of pride in, and we really do enjoy. It's been fun to watch this program grow over the last several years. Countless folks at various campus visits and conferences come up to us all the time to express their gratitude for the sponsorship and to brag on the program. And that makes us feel good, that we're able to associate our name and our actions with the success of the program. So very, very positive experience, and we're excited to hear the feedback. It's a great feeling to be able to give back and address new relationship building with a trusted partner is a win-win for everyone. And the importance of cultivating and developing relationships early are critical to your own success. It takes a dedicated amount of time and energy to build a good, strong, lasting business relationship today. They are such an integral part and necessity for your success in a leadership role in housing, but people often seem to not want to put in the effort to develop and foster those type of relationships. Our business network should be a qualified, select group of people we count on, tap into and rely on for support, direction, insight. We have to find that balance of being givers and takers. We can't just give or take. We need to do both. Far too many people don't ask for help when they need it, and that can be fatal to a relationship, a career, or the success of a project. So,
George, I got a question for you though.
Sure.
I might be jumping ahead to the building piece. So I know a lot of us, we end up meeting some of y'all in regional conference or ACE and those big vendor spaces. Like, how do you even start that conversation in that space, right? I know when I was thinking about it as a grad student, first time I went to those places, and I was like, I'm not buying any of these things. I have no use for this, or I don't think I have use for this. But at least I feel like that's a key place to start that relationship, even when you're not the person that's actually purchasing anything.
It's funny you should mention that, and I know where you're going with this. You've heard me say this before. One of the things I learned early working with Stefan, especially, when we go to these conferences, for example, and we host these dinners, and everybody goes out, we have a good time. First and foremost, that social activity is obviously to engage with customers, partners, friends. And it's a way it's a way for us to give back and show our appreciation. Hey, thank you for all that you do for us. Let us know how we can help you. But it's also to foster and develop relationships for the future. We know if you're going to invest the time as a young professional, even before mid-level, in this is probably going to be your career objective. You're going to want to stay in operations or residence life or some form of associated with campus housing. So Stefan, his attitude always was, I don't care how young they are, invite them. Let's go ahead and build that relationship. Let's let them get to know who George is, who Stefan is, Joseph, Jeremy, Oliver, all of our many reps and our teams. Know who they are, connect with those folks, build a relationship that's outside of just the professional event, but develop a sense of understanding so that, you're more likely when you need a help, you need a favor, or you have a question, to call on somebody. So let's go ahead and start building those relationships now, because eventually those folks will be the decision maker.
Yeah, and I think a great example is, you and I had a lot of conversations last year at Mid-Level Leadership Institute. The pandemic hit, but we decided to invest a lot of money in our housing system, because it was the first time our buildings had been open for any period of time. And I remember calling you up and calling up Pascal and being like, how much furniture can you get to us? And that was really challenging in terms of even your materials and your you had your furniture places and your big warehouses that were closed for a period of time. I have to imagine that was a really difficult time for you.
It was, and it was a challenge. At Folio, our sales were off about 35% compared to previous years. But we took that as an opportunity to re-engage with our customers, and also re-engage and take a look at our product lines. Are we offering the right products? Do we need to change some of our product offerings to match a post-COVID world? And part of that process is soliciting feedback from customers, or feedback from, we prefer to use the word partner, directly from you. What do you need? How do we need to change this? How do we need to be responsive? Are we calling you too much? Do we need to call more? Do we need to make recommendations? Hey, this is what we're thinking. What are your thoughts? Almost all of our product lines, a desk is a desk, a dresser is a dresser. However, post-COVID, that look, that feel of a residence room may not, depending on the institution, may change. So I would never approach a situation where I'm coming in telling you and saying, this is what you need to order. This is what you must buy. I'm never going to do that. My goal and my team's goal is to understand, what do you need? We can offer recommendations. We can say, these are trends. These are things we're seeing at other campuses and other institutions. But you tell me what works best for you, and then let us respond with an answer. And if we don't have an answer, let's build something together.
Yeah,
That's always been our approach.
Yeah, and I really like that. And I really appreciate Alex had written something in the chat about, they'd met a vendor in grad school and still connect with a decade later. And sometimes the first people that, Alex thinks of, or I think of, you were one of the first people I thought to call and to be like, okay, we need to get some quotes and let's get out there. But it doesn't have to be something that you're automatically just going to buy the next week. So,
I guess I can kind of give a trade secret away here. You'd be surprised the number of projects. I've been working with Folio almost 12 years now. Prior to that, I've spent 14 years. I'm an operations guy. I was a housing guy. Last university I worked at was Salisbury University out on the eastern shore of Maryland. So I'm an old housing guy, but you'd be surprised the number of projects where maybe they're the associate director of operations, or maybe depending on the institution, executive director, what have you. They'll come to me and say, hey, George, I want to buy from Folio. I'm not going to look at anybody else. You want to know why? Because when I was a young professional, you guys invited me to come to one of your events. You engaged with me, you sat down with me, and you explained to me the furniture buying process, your methodology, the way you build it, why you build it that way. We invested the time to cultivate a relationship. And it's not because, that's just a trick of the trade. This is who we are. And I actually hire reps who want to build those type of relationships with individuals, both who are buying and who aren't buying. we want to have, and that's kind of the philosophy of Mr. Folio and Stefan, is to have a company that, we're very engaging. Call us. How can we help? If we can't do it, here's a few recommendations. But again, I've had a lot of folks who just said, when I was a young professional, I wasn't the decision maker. So everybody, all the other vendors blew me off. But you guys, you didn't care. You welcomed me with open arms. And I think that is a major, has contributed a lot to our success.
Yeah, and I think it's a good piece just to think about broadly and challenge all of us in mid-level, especially, like these are good skills to have, regardless of if you're talking to a vendor, if you're talking to another key stakeholder on campus. It's like, how do you cultivate and build your network? Because you don't know what opportunities are going to be out there for you in the future. And it's a great way to sort of try some things out too, right?
Well, you want to be able to identify and build on people that you know and trust. They've got a track record of proving themselves when you needed them the most. And those folks, it's in their business model. The more they do for you, the more successful they are for you. The more they make you look good, the more likely you're going to recommend them and you're going to use them in future projects. So, that kind of ties into my opening line. A successful business partnership is a two-way street. It is. There's give and take. When I was telling my wife what I was going to be doing, she said, remember what my dad told you? And I was like, what did Mr. Howard tell me? She said, marriage is supposed to be 50-50, but sometimes it's 80-20. Sometimes it's 70-30. Sometimes there's a little give and there's a little take. And that has to be on a two-way street. Maybe you call and you say, George, I want this product. It's last minute. I want to order this and I want everything in wild cherry. And I go, oh my goodness, they want everything in wild cherry. But everybody else has ordered wild cherry and it's 6 weeks before move-in. How can we come up? It's our job to make a recommendation. I can't get you the wild cherry, but I can give you Northern Oak. Well, that's not what I want. Well, I'll give you Northern Oak, and you know what? If you'll take the Northern Oak so that I can meet your deadline, we'll discount the freight, or we'll throw in power outlets or something. It's a little bit of a give and take. And as long as everyone can recognize that there's an opportunity to take a reasonable give or a reasonable take, usually it'll be a success.
Yeah, and I really wish we could be in your factory today and doing the whole tour, because it's a lot of fun. Like, you can, run around on the furniture, and you can kind of like, one of the things that, for anybody, if you've ever thought about purchasing furniture or just stuff, I mean, sometimes our job is like to figure out if we can break it. Like, I've taken keys to things, shoes, and to just see how things are going to wear, not just furniture, but like flooring, and trying to figure out the industry trends, to your point, and really thinking future oriented about like what's going to, both the balance of like what looks good and is also going to last. So it's a form and function piece.
And you're right. It does have a whole nother feel. Sometimes when we do furniture mock-ups and what have you, I actually will encourage, I'll encourage, let's do a furniture fair. Let's bring samples out, kick the tires, jump up on it. The proof is in the pudding. Very similar to relationships. The proof is in the pudding. How you treat me is how I expect to be treated in return. One of my favorite actors, who I think is absolutely hilarious, Vince Vaughn. Relationships are two-way streets, not a highway and a bike path. We're all on the same road. We're all moving in the same direction. Let's use that to each other's advantage. First step in doing that is trust. You got to trust me as a vendor, and I need to trust that, that we're going to have a good, open, working relationship. I always say, be honest with each other. Is there a delay? Very, very challenging is when you're going to come out and you're going to install, 500 sets of furniture, and the building is not even ready. Construction is still there. There's things in the hallways. Now I like to say at Folio, we work miracles, and we have a realistic view. Sometimes things happen and you got to make it work. But a simple, letting us know, hey, this building is behind. we can adjust for that. There are things we can do on our end so that we're not someone else. We don't become someone else's headache, which then eventually would become your headache because everybody's going, the furniture people are in my way. I can't finish this building, or I can't do this. So be honest. Same thing for us. We need to be honest. Has there been a production delay? You don't need to be sitting there telling your VPs and other folks, oh, this building, everything, furniture is going to arrive next Monday. And, there's some type of issue and we haven't told you. Well, then that's going to make you look like you have egg on your face. So find a partner who you're going to be honest with and they're going to be honest with you.
Yep. Yeah. I think even because of the project that you did with us this last year, we were in construction, and I want to say it was really helpful when Pascal and Bill in particular were in communication, because we were able to hold furniture deliveries, we were able to shift the delivery timelines, and then with some of the materials because of COVID, I mean, we're talking about empty buildings, we could pivot, pick some other designs. If we needed the furniture earlier, we could wait on some things. And I think that's a really helpful tip to think about. And again, some really helpful things as you're working with your staff and other stakeholders on campus, like how do you work and create a valuable relationship that is built on honesty and trust? And even if you have staff teams that aren't always working well together, or if you're new into a space, how do I make a culture shift? And these are, I think, some really helpful tips.
Yep. And the best way to sum all these up, be honest, be transparent, keep everyone well informed, keep promises, be educational, and be authentic. You can really summarize all these into a couple statements. Deliver on your promises. If I tell you I'm going to be there, I need to be there. If I tell you it's going to look like XYZ, it needs to look like XYZ. If you tell me, hey, George, this sidewalk is going to be wide open for us to put a 53-foot trailer here, let's try to make that happen. So if everyone, that's how you build trust. You continuously deliver on your promises. Be accountable for your mistakes. I always say we are not perfect at Folio. If this was a formal presentation, I would always say the same line, we will screw something up with the best of them, and then we'll reach around and scratch our heads and we'll go, how in the hell did we do that? But what we do at Folio is we own our mistakes. When we make a mistake, we say, yep, we screwed this up and this is how we're going to make it right.
Yeah. And I think that's a good piece to really think about and learn, like some of 3 simple words that can make all the difference for relationships is I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yep. Right.
Well, and I don't think it's just saying I'm sorry, but it's how are you going to fix it?
Yeah.
How are you going to make it right? And it has to be a reasonable solution. I always say, I'm a brutally honest person. I'll flat out tell you, oh Lord, we did not do this right, but here's how we're going to fix it. Here's what we did wrong, and that was bad, and here's what we're going to do right, and we're going to make it good. I guess you'll if you haven't noticed already, I got a real thick Southern accent. So you'll kind of that kind of is who I am as a person, and I come across as being very honest, and I want to be honest, and I always want to be perceived as being very honest. So therefore, I always go out of my way to make sure if I promise you something, it dang well better happen. Sometimes at Folio they tell me I'm the squeaky wheel, and I was like, well, the squeaky wheel makes sure things we deliver for our customers. So. Yeah. Not a sales pitch. It's just kind of been my philosophy and who we are as a company.
Yeah. I will say one of the ones that's resonating for me right now, and I would add it into is this idea of be educational, but I think also like be willing to learn as the recipient of the educational piece of things. Like I have certainly been, and this is somewhere where like the vendor and on-campus pieces sort of changes, like being in construction meetings. Oh my goodness, sometimes the technical pieces, I'm like, it takes a while to understand and really understand what everyone is talking about. But like, I can tell you the difference between a 2-pipe and a 4-pipe system. And I can tell you why you need a 4-pipe system. And, I can speak to, we have a building right now that we're talking about carbon capturing cement. And lo and behold, there was like a news article that came out, and I turned to my spouse and I'm like, oh, we're doing this at Georgetown and here's what it means and da, da, da. But things that I wouldn't have necessarily known if I wasn't invited to the table, we were talking about that a lot when we were in some of our last sessions, like think about when I am invited to the table, what do I have to offer and what do I have to learn? And how do I squirrel some of that knowledge away for the next time when you're in a space and you need to use that information?
And this is kind of off track a little bit. I always said, no matter what type of situation you're in, always learn something. No matter what type of leader or director or what have you that you're working for or working with, always be able to walk away from a situation, even if it's a bad situation. Walk away with the attitude that you learned something. Many times it may be, I learned what not to do, but you still learned something. So that's you're exactly right. And then, what do you like? What do you not like? Be honest, tell us what you like, what you don't like. Tell us what you need, what you don't need. That sounds like a Spice Girl song. Anyway, but never, both ends. When everything that I'm saying it from the vendor side. And I'm also saying it from the partner customer side. Never intentionally mislead. That's when you start to lose that trust factor.
Oh, see, we've got some Spice Girl fans as well. So we see we're dropping some of the songs in the chat. I will say too, though, when where you were thinking about, I totally lost my train of thought for a second.
Spice Girls, they'll do that to you.
I know, I got totally off topic around, what were we talking about a second ago?
We were talking about learning pipes, learning.
I don't know. Keep on going. It'll be fine. We'll come back around.
But with trust, you really want to be authentic. This is pretty simple. Be who you are and accept others as they are. It's easy to create a false persona, but that is not the way to start a relationship and short-lived when we start qualifying people and companies. Find people and companies you feel a natural connection and ease of communication with, and things you both have in common. The authenticity of connecting personality, beliefs, and point of view can accelerate your relationship building.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Stephen Covey, he, obviously with every great presentation, you go and you find quotes that support what you're trying to say, illustrate. Stephen Covey, who was I think I'm saying that right, Covey was a motivational speaker who wrote several books about leadership. And he's most famous for the 7 habits of highly effective people. Trust is the glue of life. It's the most essential ingredient in effective communication. It's the foundational principle that holds all relationships.
That is great. And I want to say he also, and I also want to say that he had the quote or had one of the pieces around like, first listen to understand and then work to be understood. I'm more paraphrasing, but I think it goes back to that trust building. Like part of developing a relationship is being able to listen and offer reflection and then engage in a deep conversation. And really what we're talking about is the connections that we're building here. A lot of it is just about how do you keep and maintain friendships, right? And I think for all of us here, friendships often are made through work, not solely, there's religious communities and community service, but there's lots of different places.
Yep, I totally agree. It kind of goes back to what I was saying, deliver on your promises and be accountable for your mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. And these are, I really want to highlight, these are lifelong friendships. I can think of somebody, my spouse used to be in higher ed as well and had partnered with another company on off-campus listings and, found that his wife of decades was in the hospital sick with cancer and had eventually passed away. But, everyone around was saying like, can we bring you food? You are welcome to stay at our house. Like that's the type of relationships that we can build through our process, that it's not just about a transactional relationship, but how does it transform each other's person's life?
Yep, exactly. How can you build on this outside of work? Again, when you need advice, you need help, you always call a friend first instead of a stranger. Next, communications. Let me make sure I didn't. Again, y'all bear with me. I'm not that technological. So communications, clear expectations. This is what I need. Together, let's map out a plan to get what I need. Routine follow-ups and check-ins. How often does someone call on you? Do they just show up when you have a project, or do they genuinely engage with you? Do you reach out to them from time to time? Do you need their advice? Do you need an update? Do you need a suggestion? Routine. It's been really hard. I'm sitting here, I got several thoughts going on in my head. I'm sitting here thinking about COVID. COVID for Folio, for I guess vendors in general, was a challenge when it came to communications, in that everything changed. We're touchy-feely. We want to be in front of you. We want to bring in the samples. We want to go to dinner. We want to hang out. We want to come on campus, or if you're at University of Virginia on grounds. We want to be there. We want to engage with you. Well, now you've taken a lot of type A personality folks, and you're making them sit in a chair all day, and that ain't fun. So
no, you were supposed to be on campus with us at some point.
That's right. That's exactly right. And COVID completely changed that. And not only did it change that for, our sales model and engaging and going out and hanging out with you guys, it also changed, the supply chains, raw materials. There was a time there that everything froze up. And I think we'll talk about this some more tomorrow at the roundtable. What have we learned? But it really showed how important these relationships are, building these relationships and partnering with trusted friends, vendors who can still deliver in times that are challenging. And not only part of that delivering an actual product, it's delivering on a service, whether it's to help you maintain the product, or just open communications. You'd be surprised, you guys probably wouldn't be, but I get called all the time, just asking, hey, how are you? Hey, look, tell me, what do you see in other campuses? We're an ACC school. What do you see in the other ACC schools? What are they doing? Obviously I can jump on a listserv or what have you and talk to other executive directors, but what are you seeing? What's really on the ground there? What was the biggest challenge was we didn't want to wear out our welcome either. I did not want to bombard my friends, customers, partners with constant emails every week.
Yeah, we had a few other things going on at that time, right?
Exactly. There were a lot bigger fish to fry during COVID than whether or not you want to see our latest and greatest 2-position chair. So there's a fine line, and it kind of goes back to that whole building the rapport with somebody. I have customers where I'll have a rep say, I haven't heard from this person. I'll give you an example. Stephanie, you know what I'm talking about. Jason at Embry-Riddle. So I've got a new rep on the West Coast, Andrew, and Andrew was like, I can't get in touch with Jason. I said, Andrew, I've known Jason for years. When Jason needs something, he knows where to find you. So it's learning and building and fostering those type of relationships. And now Andrew knows that. Where you learn to interpret the fine line. Now again, COVID was kind of tough because finding the fine line was hard, situations. But anyway, long story short, communications continuously. We need to engage and support each other. What do you need? What's going on? How can I help?
Yeah, and I will say, I have been pretty blunt with some folks that I've worked with, and some of the things like, right now we're doing some. You were talking about ACC, and we're looking at a P3, and we're doing some.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
Design, right? And I'm the person that I will be honest enough to sit maybe a little bit too blunt sometimes, where I'm like, not you specifically. This is not necessarily an example for Folio, but I'm like, it looks like a high school cafeteria table. I don't want it. But to hear that feedback, as rough as it might be a little bit, like, okay, it's helpful to hear that, because one, I'm going to work with you in the future. That's something that that I'm not going to don't bother showing me that table. It's not going to work.
Yep. And I think as part of the relationship building process, it's important to have those open and frank, those brutally honest conversations, because I don't want to show you something that you don't want to you have no interest in, but B, I don't want to push you to buy something that you don't want to buy. I want to, with communications, this makes me think back to, I grew up, again, in the South. Daddy used to always say, boy, God gave you 2 of these and 1 of these. Listen to what people are saying to you, and listen to what they may not be saying to you, and learn to speak less. When you grasp that concept and you truly understand that concept, you'll hear a lot more. And I think it's very important when you're building a relationship is to listen to what your partner, your customer, your vendor, listen to what they're telling you and what they're saying and what messages they're sending to you, both directly said and what's not said. I hate to say it, but there's sometimes some vendors out there, especially post-COVID, they're not quite as strong as they were pre-COVID. It's been challenging. It's been challenging. Read the tea leaves. Listen, read the tea leaves. Are they going to be able to deliver? They're coming in, but not just furniture, in any commodity. Are they going to be able to deliver now like they did before?
Yeah, because I know we've seen a reduction in our staffing in higher education. I have to imagine that, you all have also seen reductions in forces and finances. And again, I don't want to drift too far into tomorrow, but I have to imagine that that's been a source of concern and also a source of resiliency.
Well, when your sales are off 30-35% because of a pandemic, you see real quick who's strong and who's not, who's financially strong. We've been fortunate, we've had that. We shuttered through this process. We shuttered a couple production not facilities, but lines and what have you. So there's been layoffs, but we've been able to keep all of our professional staff. I call the front of the house, the support staff, customer service folks, the account managers, reps. All of that has continued to be there. The people you engage with the most. And in the last quarter, we're pretty much about 100% what we were pre-pandemic, from a production standpoint, personnel and what have you. I can't say that about all of our competitors, and I can't say that about, I know outside of furniture, other vendors. And one thing you'll see is you'll notice CHO, Makuho, all the regionals and what have you. You'll see vendor participation. I'm sure has changed across the board. Mm-hmm. Like schools, a lot of businesses have had some cash flow issues, I'm sure.
Yeah. And you reminded me of something that, we have a lot of vendors that also work every day on campus, right? Or outside contractors. And I was thinking a lot about our dining partner who also runs our hotel, and how did we work with them and how do we continue to work with them? Now we're using the hotel for our isolation space on campus, but they also helped with when the isolation space was in some of our apartments, to be the frontline staff who is helping, because a lot of it involved things that they were really good at in terms of their training and their skill around food and food delivery and cleaning and communications. And so we really tried to structure in partnership on some of those pieces along with our dining, and not to say that everybody was made whole by any stretch of the imagination, but really tried to lessen the impact as much as we could, because we were able to rely on their expertise. And we actually did some partnering and continue to partner on, we are working to get micro fridges in all of our residence halls. Now we have some, I think we brought this up the other day, like we have some, facilities issues. Can you plug in? I think Jeff said this the other day, like, can I plug in a microwave? Can I plug in a micro fridge? But at the same time, I've been working with them so that we can use our dollars together to try and structure deals that work for all of us, because they needed them too.
Yeah, it's you don't want to say robbing Peter to pay Paul, but it has been a kind of a let's move focus from one area so that we can keep as many people employed and keep as many people going. But like I said, we're coming back. Our hospitality division is still slow. A lot of hotels are dependent on the business travel, and business travel is not there yet. But I'm hoping I don't know if anybody else out there, oh, let me, hold on, I got supposed to cover my birthday. Anybody else out there? I got mine this morning, so if I start talking in tongues or going crazy because the microchip is falling out or something, I'm hoping the more of these vaccines, the more folks get vaccinated, the more that the economy will continue to come back and get stronger and stronger.
Yeah, we will see. That was a good PSA for when it is your turn. Please consider getting vaccinated. I know there's lots of personal and ethical decisions to make, and at the same time, there's also lots of health considerations, and leave that to each individual to make.
That's exactly right.
To make that decision. And we're also thinking about, and this is just a side note, like some of the conversations around, we're even looking at and just sent out new guidance for as a university for if you have been vaccinated or not. We're not requiring vaccinations at this point, but really encouraging, because DC quarantine guidelines have changed where if you have the vaccine, you don't have to quarantine. Right. So I mean, we will see, but it's going to take it's certainly going to take time. And I think we're all feeling it. It's helpful to hear from you how to, everybody has felt an impact from the pandemic this last year.
I know we're kind of getting off, but I was not a vaccine person. I was kind of going, oh Lord, I don't know if I'm gonna do this. But several folks who I trust said, hey, no, go do it. It's safe. You should do that. And then today, when I was there getting my second shot, there's probably 6 or 7 nurses that are running the kind of the little drive-through shot stuff. Only like 3 of them had actually been vaccinated. I was like, oh, I don't know if I should be here getting my second shot. So
well, that's why, and then we'll move on to other topics. We'll get off the health pieces, but please follow CDC guidelines, wear a mask, socially distant.
There you go.
The things that we're teaching and educating our students, right?
But kind of to build on this, brainstorming solutions. Let's talk together. Let's have an open conversation. What works best for you? What works best for your campuses? Find a partner who is actually going to talk with you and not just try to tell you this is what you need to do or this is how you need to do it. But something that a problem you can solve together. Again, our Privacy Guard series, which we introduced back during COVID and we've had a lot of success with. It's basically ways to divide a particular room to try to respect the CDC guidelines and respect social distancing and what have you. We did that. We had those conversations with key members of our customer base that we trust. They trust us. We talk through different product lines and how to tweak them and how to modify them. Again, open communications. Come up with a solution that works a reasonable solution that works for both you and your business partner.
Yeah, I can think of back to some of the architectural pieces, because we've done some construction on campus and some renovations recently. One of actually a couple of problem solving spaces and taking advantage of some of the relationships, not advantage, but opportunities that we had. So we had a very old historic building where in some spaces, the floor to ceiling window heights were 18 feet. And you can't find that in new construction. But the spaces were fairly small, and we wanted to make sure that everybody had one of those windows. So we basically created their beds above, it's a suite style, above the bathroom, so that they take a ship ladder up. And we also have ADA accessible rooms. And so when you wake up in the morning, you sit up and you have views of the Potomac River. And so just to think about how do we do that? But the other piece that we ran into is that we also had a place that used to be the dining hall on campus, and it had been the Jesuit, communal space for several years. And as we were building, because of the way that the fire code was written, there was a chance we were going to have to drop a stairwell in the middle of that space. And space on our campus is very limited. For us to be able to find 2,400 square feet, we were just like, wait a second, we can't give this up. And so we worked with our vendors that were the folks that were doing the architectural design, and with the DC fire marshal and the government to make sure that we met code. But we were able to, by working with people and problem solving, we were able to preserve that space for students, and we can use it for an event space. We've got a pool table in there. And great views, again, out onto one of our core spines of our campus.
Yep, and you problem solve together for that. You figured out how can we come up with a reasonable, affordable solution that works for what we need in a facility and what we need to put in the facility to make all these dynamics come together and work. And that's, you did that with trusted partners. And that's the importance of having and developing and fostering these relationships.
Yeah. And I think oh, sorry, go ahead, George.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, but I also think at the same time, what I appreciate about problem solving, and also problem solving with people that you trust, is you can sometimes throw out the ideas that you can get very creative, and you're like, this might be an idea that you all think is very outside the box. Don't know even if it's possible, but then you say it into the space, and everybody's like, that's a wonderful idea. We had another construction piece. We don't have a lot of sidewalks, trash disposal on our campus. All the trucks come up and pull up to the residence hall because there's no other way to do it. And so Pat, who's one of the faculty members, came up with this idea and was like, well, could we create a trash area down below ground, connect it to the Rice Science Center next door where there's a loading dock, and just have the trash truck come up to the loading dock, and then we don't have to worry about navigating students and all of the other issues that come with that. So now Pat Killelea has his own tunnel under Arupe Hall. Thanks, but
Wow.
I don't know if we would have all done that had we not really thought about, like, how do we think differently and think big, right?
Well,
what are your magic ideas?
It's important to have a partner that you're receptive, and they make recommendations, and you're receptive to those recommendations. Sometimes you may think you have the best idea ever, and sometimes I go in and I'll say, hey, I'll play devil's advocate, and I'll say, hey, have you thought about this? And you'll see them go, oh, you're right, I never thought about that. And I might have saved them thousands of dollars just by, instead of adding a nightstand to the side of a bed, you went with, we have a headboard that kind of incorporates everything that you get out of a nightstand, some storage and power and what have you. And it's significantly cheaper. So, make recommendations. And on the residence hall side, make recommendations back. You guys really need to start looking at adding this to your collection or doing that. Open lines of communications from trusted partners save money, save time, save energy, and makes everybody happy. It gets them a product that they want and they know will work for them, and it makes the company look better because they were able to deliver on that promise, deliver that product that they particularly wanted.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have any of that if you didn't talk.
No, and more often than not, I've certainly sat in some spaces where I've been with a bunch, different vendors, contractors, and have gently nudged in a way to say, like, I don't think that's really what you wanted, like in a way that is collegial and relationship building, but to say, like, this may not be the best decision for you. And I've really appreciated when people have listened to what we're trying to achieve. And maybe the idea is not really, it's the my boss describes it as interest versus position, right? Like, what's my actual interest? What's my actual mission? And I have a position, but maybe that's not the position I need in the end. But like, what's my, what is it I'm really trying to achieve? And having that dialogue, you might be able to figure out something that's much more, fruitful, right? And that's something that a skill to be able to learn regardless of who you're working with.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That is exactly right. Okay, I think I got another famous quote coming up here. I'm gonna make it famous.
Okay, you told me to, put information and ideas and jokes. I'm slowing you down on this whole presentation.
You're fine. You're fine. Jim Rohn was a motivational speaker, but he said, if you just communicate, you can get by. But if you communicate skillfully, you can work miracles. And that kind of chimes into what you're saying. You kind of politely push them into and you might not want to go down that path. Let's focus on this. We're all playing for the same team. We solicit feedback. We offer to help. We offer feedback. We're receptive to that feedback. We value all team players. We have shared goals, shared values, and we need to foster a mutual respect. At Folio, we try to develop products that reflect not only trends, but directly represent what our clients, AKA our partners, tell us that they want. Like we said earlier, the Privacy Guard series, how simple it is to clean in this time, the post-COVID time. Laminate and fabric options that work in a post-COVID world. We try to identify shared goals and values. We seek out people in life we like, we share similar goals and values with. Are they honest? Are they kind? Are they knowledgeable, helpful? Do they treat others with respect? This is about moral character. Do we respect them? Too many people present themselves one way only to take advantage of people once they have their trust. We may not always share the same point of view with everyone, but the shared values are a must to be successful. Part of that success is developing mutual respect. I find this takes time. Unless someone is referred to you by a trusted connection, we prove ourselves over time and through different activities and experiences. We join a chamber, professional group, an online community, which are all great environments to develop relationships. We have to be patient, selective, and watch people in action, observe. Building mutual respect is essential for growing those professional relationships.
Yeah. And one of the things I really appreciate you sharing these reflections and these ideas, one of the pieces that I was thinking about when you were talking through is this idea of, fostering your network, right? Because I'm going to get the percentage off, so I'm not even going to say it, but like nowadays, a lot of people find their next job because of the network and the relationships that they have built. And I can at least speak for myself. I don't want to speak for other people on the call, but I have certainly sent things to people that have worked at other institutions, like, hey, I know this person is applying for this position. I really like, I know you, I know this person, I think they could be a good match. And it comes from genuine, like, I care about both of them and I want both of them to succeed. And so how can I, help my community, and my community being my housing family, to be able to make some of those lifelong pieces and invest time, right? And I get the same back. So I see it as the two-way street analogy in terms of, I have certainly looked at someone's resume. We've done interview before they've gone on the interview. I've had people look at my resume, my cover letter. And so I really think that thinking about, like, how do we use this time, right? And you're in the clusters or the conversations that we're having to, maybe challenge everyone to think about, like, are there 2 or 3 people, and it doesn't, and it shouldn't be all faculty, right? But like, are there 2 or 3 people that I feel like I've developed or want to develop a relationship with, to be able to go and continue to have a conversation after this institute? Because it's a little tough sometimes on Zoom. Like we were joking earlier, it would have been so much fun to be in your showroom sort of just chatting with each other, but to really think about, like, one of the things we do in DC with a few of the institutions, so Georgetown, GW, and American are probably within like 2 miles of each other. And so we try to have Zoom, the Zoom meetings with that group, because we have a lot of the similar decisions. We know all our presidents and vice presidents are talking to each other. So we check in on what they're talking about so we can help manage up a little bit. And so I just think about, like, for example, for like small institutions that are here, or folks that are here from Canada, like, is there a way to sort of think about, like, fostering some of those networks after this time, by maybe one person saying like, hey, I'll set up the, monthly Zoom call and just get a chance to talk about what's going on, or connecting with other institutions, even in your own state or your own state system, just to think about like, are there opportunities there to be able to put this in action at the end of this institute?
I there am a reference. There's a lot of people. I'm probably a personal reference for a half dozen people every year. And I don't know if a vendor reference carries any type of weight, but folks say, no, I want to be able to tout, especially if they're applying for an operations position. I want to tout, projects that we've done together, how we did them, how we accomplished that. So I would say on average about 6 references a year. I'll get a call from various people in housing saying, hey, I'm applying for this position. Do you mind if I put you down as a reference? That makes me feel good. It really does. That I'm asked. They trust me enough to ask me to be a personal reference for them, and or a professional reference, depending on the situation.
Yeah. I mean, I will share, and probably TMI for this particular conversation, but there was a vendor that actually at a Wakuho was the person that helped connect my now spouse and I together. So that's another conversation for a breakout session, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. So,
I think this goes back to, I've got your back. Let people know that you have their back as a way of showing loyalty to them. Too often, gossip and unnecessary conversations go down among people that simply shouldn't be going on. As tricky as this can be, address it directly, respectfully, and reconsider the conversation in the future. Deliver on your promises. Prove that you have their back. If they do screw up, let everyone know, hey, I've got a great business partner. They're going to make it right. If the conversation goes off the rail, put it back on the rail and move on. Another famous quote. Steve Jobs. I just thought this was a cool quote. Technology is nothing. What's important is that you have a faith in people, that they are basically good and smart. And if you give them tools, they'll do wonderful things with them. I think I like this because I'm an education major. My wife is actually an elementary school teacher, and her philosophy on teaching was, every child can learn. Let's give them the proper tools so that they can learn and be successful. And, have faith in people, have faith in your relationships, have faith in your trusted suppliers, and then support them. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's okay. I was just going to say, because I think, maybe you're getting to this point now, but I was also thinking about and having conversations with folks over the last day or two too, like the idea of also giving people 2 things, right? The idea of giving people grace, right? So everybody having space to room and grow, allow room to grow, but also hold people accountable, right? That it comes with both. And then the person also making a change in that process of growth. So I think, thinking about like that relationship over time, and when you invest in people, but the other thing that I will just own, sometimes I really struggle with is, and this is beyond vendors, like sometimes like relationships going on longer than they should have. And like at some point you have to say that there's time to walk away. And when is that? And sometimes that can come from doing that as a place of strength, to make a decision to put yourself first, to be able to say this is no longer healthy. And so I think we also have to, name and own that too, is that some relationships may not be worth keeping.
Very true. And, as part of that, you can, the relationships you want to keep, give them some other opportunities. I'll give a good example. That way I can pick on me. I think at Folio that our bread and butter, what we do best is case goods. That's what we're known for: beds, desks, dressers. but we also do lounge. And there's a lot of great companies out there that do lounge. And some schools, it's flipped. At Stephanie's school, we do a lot of her lounge, and another company does her case goods, which is fine. But if you have an opportunity, maybe a unique project, you really want to test a relationship, give them an opportunity to earn the business on something else that they typically don't provide for you. Offer suggestions. We've said that several times, especially during communications. Tell them, say, hey, we're not buying your case goods because we don't like your handles, or we're not going to buy your software package because we don't like how it works on your iPhone. Give them feedback and offer suggestions. Be a resource for them. Let them know they can come to you if they want to try. We talked about earlier at Folio, we did the Privacy Guard series. They're Gay Perez, University of Virginia. I float anytime we're doing something crazy, I say, hey, Gay, what do you think of this? Because if any of you know Gay Perez, she's the bluntest, just in your face, right there. She's gonna just hit you with the facts. It's ugly, it's great, that doesn't work, this works. Be a resource. Be a reference. I can have the best sales rep team, somebody else can have the best sales rep team. The best point for me in regards to selling is I say, forget everything I've said, call the people who I've got a trusted relationship with, call Stephanie, ask her, what was her experience like? They are the other people speaking on your behalf, whether it's professionally or personally. People speaking on your behalf are your best reference. That's how you also grow tighter with a particular vendor. If a vendor knows, hey, I know Stephanie's gonna give me props. She's gonna tell American University, who's also a long-time customer, hey, we love Folio, we love their lounge. That's gonna pay dividends.
Yeah.
And in the end, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I know. I call up other people. I'm like, are you using this product? And someone's like, yes. And then you go talk to someone else. And when we were doing an RFP for a new housing software system, we called references and we said, what is it that you appreciate about it? What are some of the struggles? What are some of the tips that we can learn? So it's not even just about, you and I having a relationship, or our institutions and our business having a relationship, but it's also how do we rely on our network here? Because it's the same thing. Like if you're working on campus and how you navigate some of the politics and the campus politics, you have to create your own story and your own relationship, but you will also go to people that you know and trust to be like, what this person is new. Should I trust this person? What has your interactions been? And you want your actions to match your values and want to match what you say, because that will ripple out to your institution and the people that you work with. And if they think that you are strong, strong's not the correct word, but are working with them and working collaboratively, at least at my institution, I have found that that's helpful. And certainly there are lots of other dynamics at play. We've talked a lot of the other dynamics yesterday around, who has power, who has influence, race, gender, that a lot of that also comes into play. And, how do you develop your network that you can go out to, that you trust, to have conversations?
Well, it also, we were talking about become a resource. You'd be surprised the number of institutions that will call me. They're buying office furniture. This is completely off but I know nothing about office furniture, but I know quality. I know some of the big names. I don't sell office furniture, but folks will call me and say, hey, what do you think about these particular people? We're thinking of doing this. I've had that call several times. Mm-hmm. And again, it's like the reference letter as well. I will have folks ask me to be their reference. So if we do all of this, we will develop a relationship. Not just you in general with vendors. You'll develop a relationship with a partner that you can trust, who They're going to lift you up when you need to be lifted up. They're not going to leave you high and dry, and they're going to help you come up with solutions that work. And in the end, it makes us all look good.
So I'm going to ask you something, and I don't mean this to be a shameless plug, but you've mentioned it a couple of times, and I do have questions.
Sure.
What is the Privacy Guard series?
So the Privacy Guard, you would ask me this and I wouldn't have it ready. So the Privacy Guard series is actually something that we came up with that actually, we set the rooms up with, I have a great advertisement for this, and I should
We can drop it. We're starting a community piece, and we can give it to Grant. We'll set up the link. Folks can take a look at it. So.
I will email you that when we get off this call. But basically,
Right.
It's several different product options that allow you to divide a room. The first being, we actually designed a standalone center that's anchored by a desk that faces one way and a desk that faces the other way, and then a larger structure in between that divides two beds. So one group has their own privacy, the other group has the other. Now, of course, COVID was the catalyst for this,
Sure.
but let's face it, Stephanie, you and I were coming along, we all shared rooms with brothers, sisters, grew up in 3-bedroom homes, and now all the students moving to campus, it seems like, has their own private bedroom. They've never shared a room with anybody else. So when all the students were asking for something private, this is a way to make a room somewhat private, but still a double occupancy option.
Yeah, and that's not the experience certainly for all of our students, and so I want to also think about but I do want to sort of draw out the idea of themes of how am I, what we're finding in the conversation is how do I find both my individual space that I feel safe
Is mine.
that is mine, and where is it that we create community. And so I think a lot of the conversations that we're going to have post-COVID, and this is around furniture and community and outdoor space, I think it will be, to your point, the catalyst for different conversations. How do we set up those spaces? Because I think we're gonna face a space, we're gonna face when we come back to campus in the fall, and lots of institutions here are probably never closed. I say coming back in the fall because we haven't been above 20% occupancy since last March, is this idea of trying to balance. And we talked about tensions yesterday, tensions in our work, meaning competing goods, not necessarily a specific answer that we can always point to very easily, but this idea of individual and community and post-pandemic, and what does it mean to connect with people in person once again.
Right.
And then how do we balance the real health and safety concerns that we have been living with, and then how do we make meaning of our community as we're coming back into an ongoing mental health crisis, ongoing racial trauma and injustice, ongoing health disparities, ongoing issues around food and housing insecurity. And this is, on topic, but not exactly topic around Folio specifically, but just trying to think about what are our campuses going to even feel like and look like? We're talking about staff that may never come back to campus because they'll be teleworking, because we're trying to think about how do we reduce our footprint because we're renting so many properties off campus. And so we want to reduce that because then we save costs that we can invest in other things. But it means that we may have staff who never come to campus. And so what does that mean for the idea of community, and how do we meet some of those values and goals?
Right. And I think part of this relationship building, whether it's, in my case, it's furniture, we mentioned software, other goods and services, a good partner is going to want to talk to you, is going to want to engage with you, is going to want to hear your feedback, and they're going to want to come up with solutions that directly respond to your feedback. And if they don't listen twice as hard as they speak, then maybe they're not the right trusted partner. But I think it's important to find those partners that are willing to understand And they may have a different opinion. We're a world of different opinions. They may have a different approach, but they still need to respect the challenges in particular that you're having in housing and offering solutions that work for you. And keeping in mind, in my opinion, every campus is different. Every community is different. What works best for the people of your particular community?
Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made. I think about I think we talked about it the other day in a session, like just decision fatigue, all the decisions that we've had to make over the last year, and trying to think about like what do things look like in the future, and they're going to be different for everybody. Like we may not have the resources that we did for a while, so how do we make decisions around, back to I think what Jude and Chris were talking about? We have organizational priorities. Where do we invest, and how do we decide where we're going to invest in? Is it going to be investing in our HVAC systems? Or is it going to be investing in our furniture? Are we going to have to, as we're doing construction, invest more time and money to create more single bedroom options? And so I think a lot of this really will have folks thinking in ways that we maybe hadn't thought about even just a year ago.
Very true. Very true. I guess, at the end of the day, everything that we do is quite simple. We need to build strong relationships with many different people, and we need to stay honest. Stay honest about the reality of the situation, honest about our capabilities, and honest about what your individual, I hate to use the word needs, but what your campus needs to provide a safe, welcoming environment. And that, my friends, I'm open to questions. You ask me anything. If I don't know the answer, I will make it up. So you tell me what can I help with? What can I answer? What can I mention? What should I say? What shouldn't I say? You tell me. I'm trying to pull up the chat.
Yeah, I'm checking. So feel free either to raise your hand, just unmute yourself, or put something in the chat.
Wahoo wah. Where's Mike Jones at? Is Mike in? There he is. What's up, Mike? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well. How's Nashville treating you?
It's actually a really good day here.
Is it warm? Like 80 here.
It's like 75 and breezy. I think a thunderstorm's coming through, but it's really good. Yeah. I'm taking breaks, like walking around and just enjoying it because we haven't had this in quite some time.
Is the pollen as bad there and everywhere else, or everyone else? Oh, the pollen is horrible in North Carolina right now. All right.
We're at our highest pollen count, I think, of the year so far. So.
Yeah, they were saying on the news 2 days ago that we actually had a real solid winter. There weren't a lot of peaks and high temperatures throughout the winter that allowed some plants to bloom earlier. So everything just kind of bloomed at one time. That's why the pollen counts are so heavy this year. It's like the 5th highest in our region since they've been recording it. So, well, Stephanie, Jeff, Grant, unless you need anything else, I guess we'll visit with you again tomorrow at the roundtable.
Yeah, I think we might have, I'm trying to find it, but I think Jeff found it. There might be a question in the chat.
Oh, okay. What's up?
I can read it. You've got it. Yeah. So from Katie, if they do not have a connection, who would they reach out to in order to learn more in this non-in-person world?
Well, so one of the things that we're actually doing at Folio right now, we were hoping to have this rolled out at this point, but we have completely revamped our website, and it's going to actually operate more like a true platform, in that folks would be able to go there, virtually test drive furniture, see who their rep is, interact with their rep directly, basically do a lot of the front end conversation when it comes to actual specifics on the furniture, long before they actually have to engage in a real life person. That still doesn't replace our reps coming out and visiting with them one-on-one and building that rapport and building that relationship. But I would say start at for us, and for most companies in general, the websites. I mean, if anything, the new virtual reality of, again, post-COVID, is that needs to be nurtured and professionally maintained and easily accessible.
And Grant, I don't know if you want to speak to briefly, I think Aku Hawaii has done some, I want to say vendor showcases or times with vendors. I don't know if that's something that will be coming up or part of ACE in the future.
Yeah, we have done some vendor showcases, and I'll try to post some links up in the online community. And so, not just Folio, but certainly a lot of our other corporate partners and friends and sponsors, find venues within Aku Hawaii. There's lots of helpful articles that are out there too that some of our corporate folks have written. We have a couple of dedicated corporate people in our office that, obviously George knows very well, but Allison Jones and Catherine Scheid are two people that work every day with corporate sponsors and partners in our office. And so, if you have questions about how to navigate or, looking to make connections, the folks in our office are really happy to help you navigate that as well. And Allison and Catherine also stage all of our exhibit halls during our in-person events and some of our virtual events as well. So they can be really great resources, and I'll make sure I include their contact information. So if you have questions, I think they'd be super happy to sort of help you navigate and find some starting places for that.
But for us in general, the website is a great place. Aku Hawaii will obviously, like Grant said, we'll have links. Gannon University. Yep. Denise, I know Denise very well. We did a presentation there for your new project coming up in 2022, I believe. I had asked Katie what institution. So.
Well,
The fences went up today for construction.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
Nice.
I think one other thing, George, that people may still wonder about, because I think early on in what you all discussed, we really try to make sure people understand that regardless of whether or not you're the director or the chief buyer of your program, many of our associates still want to get to know you and talk with you and engage with you. At the same time, there are some vendors that don't. They are, and I'm saying that more from like, they really just want to know who the buyer is. That's who they're looking to engage. And I say that because I know a lot of my staff over the years continue to give me that feedback as a director. So are there any words of wisdom you'd impart on them for, how to navigate some of those circumstances, either as a mid-manager who are hearing that message from their staff, or as someone who, like in their positions, they're not necessarily the buyer. And let's just be real, sometimes us directors aren't even the buyer for our institution, the one really signing that checkbook. So how do they, work through some of that and move forward?
Great question. I think, in my opinion, everyone has influence. Everyone has influence. That individual may not necessarily be the decision maker, and it's shameful that a vendor or associate would kind of blow them off. But I know that happens. I was a young professional many moons ago. I know that feeling, and I guess that's one of the things I wanted to tout earlier with what I was saying about Stefan is, I hope you never feel that way when you approach a Folio event, whether it be at a conference, professional development event, wherever we are at. Something that's ingrained in us from myself and Stefan is that we are open to everyone, because in our opinion, everyone has influence and everyone wants to learn. So to directly respond to your question, some vendors are just going to be that way. If you're not the guy with the checkbook, they don't want to have anything to do with you. And my opinion of that is,
Or the gal with the checkbook, let's be honest about.
Yep, I'm being very general. The
Or I know,
individual,
I just want to call it out that there's lots of it. Yeah,
the
everyone.
individual with the checkbook, they just may want to blow off. I say let that be a lesson to you, how that individual company works. Don't tell them you're not the decision maker, because all of you are influencers. And I know Jeff was a decision maker at his previous institution, but he was really tight with his staff, and he just as he said, he heard his staff, and his staff told him, hey, I had a great time getting to know the folks at XYZ company. Remember that, be mindful of that, because yes, you do have influence. While you may not be the person who pulls the trigger, Jeff, Stephanie, and others, they do want to know your opinion. They want to hear your feedback. And if everyone's coming in their office saying, hey, I tried to get to know these folks over here and they blew me off, that's going to resonate. May not be today, but it will eventually have an impact.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion.
And what I would also add to that too is think about what space that you might be able to get into to start doing that type of work and learning. So, I don't think, with some very few exceptions, that supervisors love to give people myself love to give people opportunities, but sometimes I don't know fully someone's bandwidth. But I'm always interested, like if someone were to come to me to say like, hey, I heard we're getting ready to do a purchase order of mattresses, whatever it is, or furniture. Can I shadow somebody? Can I be the person that works with the vendor? Can I be the person that's on site when it's delivered to understand that piece? Like, I hope supervisors don't say no to that, but think about like what's the right space and the right place to do that. So.
And Jeff, to be more specific too with your question, I would tell if I were you, I was at a trade show or I was at my desk and I wanted to call the Star Res rep, to ask them about their whatever. Say, look, I want to learn. This is my career path. Operations interests me, res life, whatever your career path is, educate the vendor or the associate so that they can then turn around and educate you on why their product, what sets them apart, what their methodology is, what is their approach. Let them know, I want to learn. And those of us who want to learn and continuously learn, we tend to excel and go further in our careers. Those that just shut off, close off, they, the light sometimes tends. I don't know.
Well, and I will say this because I know we're bumping up on time and folks want to have a quick break, but I think it's a good place to end just in general about the idea of like, be a curious learner throughout your life. That will benefit you on your own personal and professional journey, and to ask a lot of questions and open up to different conversations and different perspectives that maybe you wouldn't have had you not thought about or asked the questions or said, hey, can I sit in this meeting, or can I go on the website and have all the Star Res courses that you could ever imagine. I still cannot duplicate a table on Star Res to save my life, but that's okay. I know how to look up where someone lives, so I'm doing okay for my job. So with that, I want to thank George again and Folio for the sponsorship, the collaboration, and the conversation today. Oh, Cody, duplicating tables is not my jam. Honestly, I could not do it to save my life. But with that, everyone, please go have a few moments. And again, George, thank you. Thank you for your sponsorship with Folio, and thank you for your friendship for myself and for many of my friends and colleagues on this call. So with that, Grant, unless you have anything you need to say, we'll let folks go.
I think we're all set. I just put the link to the cluster times in the chat window. And hopefully also don't forget to come back for the social event later on this evening at 6:10.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you later.